So I mentioned on the last YouTube video and podcast that we had an exciting announcement to make, and this is going to be it. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Matt Dawson has been a little bit not super involved with the podcast lately. So Mike and I were filming and recording in location in Deer Valley in Utah. We're having a great time skiing, talking about stuff, and we decided to sit down and basically talk about some of the things that we thought were important from a fellowship director point of view or an ED director point of view. And we had a kind of uninvited guest show up, and unfortunately we had to give him some not so great news. So watch the video to find out who our uninvited guest was and what that means for our podcast.
If you're not good enough at ultrasound, that's not an excuse to punish your patients with radiation.
Get out there, ultrasound some hearts, some lungs, some IVCs. Let us know how you feel about it.
Yeah, we can definitely do that, or we could be better clinicians and use our ultrasound.
Hey, Mike.
Oh, hey, Jacob. How you doing?
Dude, we're in the same place.
It doesn't happen very often.
This is
we must be doing an
year.
ultrasound conference.
No, we're not actually.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, we are in Deer Valley in Utah. It's gorgeous. Now, you used to live in Salt Lake, right?
Yeah, which isn't Deer Valley, but it's not far. Down in
But I landed in Salt Lake.
You did. You landed in Salt Lake, but
No,
we drove up here.
I'm looking outside. Does this get old? How beautiful it is outside. It's all snow-capped. Everything looks so fun. Does it get old after a while?
Yeah, after about 12 hours or so, you'll feel like you want to get out of here.
Is that really all it takes? Well, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about things that I wish that I had known coming right out of fellowship. Now you're four-ish, 5-ish years ahead of me after fellowship, right? So I graduated in 2016 from fellowship.
You made me do math. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, 5 years.
Yeah, and you did it with Matt Dawson.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, same time. We did this whole ultrasound thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of things that I'm kind of realizing now that I wish somebody would have told me before. Although, to be honest...
Is that because you did your fellowship with Matt?
No, Matt was a great fellowship director, actually.
Okay.
I saw him 3 or 4 times.
I'm just wondering because I don't feel like there's anything that I don't know. So I must have learned it all during fellowship.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll be able to come by here in a little bit. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the fact that it's actually kind of difficult to do ultrasound director stuff.
It is.
You know
Yeah,
what I
it
mean?
can be tough. You know why?
Why?
It's motivation. Trying to motivate people is super
Hey guys,
challenging.
It is very difficult.
y'all recording a podcast? Sorry I didn't get the email. I know
Hey,
you
man.
probably wanted
Hey,
to hear.
Matt.
I didn't check my email this morning.
Dude, I thought you told him.
Dude, you were supposed to.
No, nobody told me you were
gonna
recording.
tell him.
No, remember we did an email exchange back and forth, and it was he hasn't really contributed.
I
You know
thought
what I mean?
that we
He hasn't really
decided
done
that
well.
you were going to tell him because
You have a
guys
better
are-
relation- you have a better
You
relationship
guys
with
are
him.
in
He
the same
just-
city. You could do it in person.
I know, but
You're not
he
going to
hasn't.
text the guy. He's fired.
But
What?
Hey, bro. So we were thinking about taking your name off the podcast.
You mean like the Mike and Matt podcast?
Well, no, the Ultrasound podcast with Mike and Matt and Jacob.
No, ultrasound was just a side thing. It was
yeah, you haven't done anything in maybe 3 years. You haven't.
You were actually at the castle for Castle Fest, but
And
I
didn't-
think you were in a different.
Yeah.
time.
okay. I'm breathing.
Look, it's a little awkward to be doing this on.
I know. I wish
on video,
just-
but I guess maybe it's good for the audience to really know what's going on.
Okay, I'm doing the podcast with you.
Okay.
I refuse to be fired. Well, since I'm here, I'm not leaving.
Okay.
Maybe I'll just heckle you.
I guess.
Or
Well, what we can do instead, I guess, is can you explain to us why, what you've been up to? Because
Where you've been? And
Where
why don't
have
care
you
about us
been?
anymore?
Because you must be doing something. You must be doing something important. Because why else would you not be on the Ultrasound podcast? It wasn't somehow more important than the Ultrasound podcast.
yeah, no, and just to be super clear, just to say this was not planned or contrived at all. This is completely happenstance.
Yeah, we didn't know Matt was going to be
But
here.
since you asked,
In Deer Valley with us for a week.
I mean, it just was randomly walking through this condo. that you all are in. It's good to see you, by the way.
Yeah, good to see you too, buddy.
Wild Health. So a couple of years ago, Mike and I decided, well, actually, so it goes back several years. Several years ago, Mike and I really got into genetics, genomics, and it was based on an issue that we had, really Mike's issue.
Is that why I ate raw sardines once in Norway?
Mostly, yeah.
Okay.
So several years ago, Mike found out he had a real issue with his lipids, and really high. We were young, ultra marathons, eating what we thought was perfect. Mm-hmm. Lipids were really high. We were talking about them, and I made a suggestion of, hey, ketogenic diet. 85% of people get better on a ketogenic diet, lipid improvement.
So it must have worked, right? It must have fixed him.
So he got a lot worse. He nearly died. We brought him back from the
but he did look pretty bad. It was grim.
The numbers got worse. So in the meantime, too, like his doctor was saying, want to start him on statin, which is a reasonable thing, but he had some muscle breakdown and myopathy from that. And as he's going through this whole ordeal, we got really into genetics and looking at DNA and seeing if we could do real personalized medicine. Because when you look at the literature, it seemed like we've been talking about this forever, but it looked like it was finally ready for prime time. Mm-hmm. So when we look at Mike's genetics versus my genetics, we saw really quickly, okay, I do respond great to a ketogenic diet. Mike had all these SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, that made it really sensitive to saturated fat.
Wait, what are SNPs?
Single nucleotide polymorphisms.
No, I get
like
that, but what is that like?
So,
what is that?
It's what makes you instead of you Mike. So all the little genetic variations give you certain risk factors,
it's basically
advantages.
Like a G in place of an A, on your DNA.
Not a mutation. We're not going to get into the definition of what's a SNP versus a mutation or anything like that. But when we looked at Mike's genetics, it became clear that he needed almost the opposite of a ketogenic diet. And so when he switched to that, he got a lot better. We also just looked at different things for ourselves that we were doing lifestyle-wise that we thought were great, and they probably were hurting us, not the best thing. And when we had this experience for ourselves, this was several years ago, we then started doing it for people we care about, friends, family, other people, and got really great results. And then a year and a half ago or so, about when I kind of bailed on you with the ultrasound thing, we basically decided to go all in. We created a company called Wild Health to really dig into this, and we've grown now. There's about 40 MDs, PhDs, providers working with us. We're seeing patients all over the world in the country. We got our first outcomes data back, which were really remarkable. Big decreases in LP(a), other lipids, increase in heart rate variability, which we didn't really expect.
And heart rate variability is like something that shows your fitness of your cardiovascular system, right?
It's a great measure for fitness. Acutely, it's a great measure for recovery, like with athletes. We're working with quite a few athletes, hopefully some that will win medals this year in Tokyo.
Oh, wow.
So great for recovery, acutely helping with planning of workouts, but then over the long run, looking at increasing HRV for increasing fitness in general. So really amazing results, and so because of that, we've just continued to move forward. We've transitioned a little bit. When we first started out, it was taking us, because we were just kind of figuring all this out, reading everything we could, it would take us 10 to 12 hours to really to look at a patient, because we were combining genetics. We think genetics by themselves is kind of useless. That's kind of your human operating system, so it's important, but epigenetics are probably 80% of your actual health status and your risks.
So that's like environmental stuff, like things that you eat.
Every day, everything you do, what you eat, the chemicals you're exposed to, your stress levels you're turning on and off, good and bad genes. So we also look and see where you are right now, not just the operating system part, but look at your lipids, but not just your lipids, your NMR fractionization, your thyroid, your hormones, your vitamins, minerals, inflammation. Look at all those things. And then we also look at microbiome frequently, critically important piece. And we take all of that data, and then we'd have hundreds of pages in front of us, and then we have to talk to the patient for a long time and correlate all of this, put it in the context of their life to come up with a full optimization plan. So it was fun, it was rewarding.
It just took forever.
It took forever. So since that time, we hired the person who started the data informatics program for Humana, some other data scientists, and we created a technology tool that now allows us to upload DNA data, 960,000 SNPs go into the algorithm, the blood, biomarkers, microbiome, patient preference, and we get it's a really nice tool to give us really precision guidance. And then we have that we can take to a patient and then talk to them, just as an example, what's the perfect diet for you? Really good information from all the data. If you have a PEMT, polymorphism, you probably need more choline. If you have a VDR, you may need more vitamin D. But then what is your vitamin D level? How are you methylating? So look at the blood test. And then what do you like to eat? If we give you a perfect diet and you're not going to eat it, then we've wasted our time. So talking to the patient, same thing for exercise. We can look at your genetics and say, you're going to respond best to this type of exercise. This is how much recovery you need. This is your injury predisposition to kind of guide what you do. But the most important thing is, what do you enjoy doing? What's going to be sustainable? And we know that we can build around it with the genetic. So dance aerobics. Yeah. So you love dance aerobics.
Water aerobics, actually.
Water aerobics.
Yeah.
Well, that the dance he really likes.
I
but
really like
is it dancing in the water?
That's with the ribbons.
Well, but here's the thing: he loves dance aerobics. The problem is he has a collagen 5A1 issue that leads to increased Achilles tendon problems.
So he has to do
all the little jumps he does is not good. So he needs to do water aerobics.
I don't jump that high.
So that's an example, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Water polo would be a reasonable option for you there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you get a good mix of strength versus endurance on your muscle fiber type. Take it into consideration.
Take it into consideration.
Yeah. So, and then now, just to continue the completely random story we didn't plan at all.
Yeah, we didn't plan this at all.
We've transitioned even more, and honestly, that's why I'm talking to you. We can't keep up with the patients coming to us. The demand is higher than the supply, and our background is education. So we have started a fellowship to actually train physicians to do this. We've got the results. We know it works. We know it's incredibly rewarding and fun. It's not the broken sick care model of medicine. It's preventative, it's proactive, it's optimizing people. And we want to teach physicians how to do it. That's why we're all in Deer Valley
That's why
together.
we're here. We're recording.
There's actually 10 of us here.
Yeah.
We recorded content yesterday from 8 a.m. till 10:30 p.m.
I did one this morning.
You did. Testosterone. It was great.
Thanks.
How to optimize your testosterone.
Yeah, it was fun.
So we're putting all that together. We have a fellowship. You can actually go to wildhealthfellowship.com to see more about that. We have our website is wildhealth.com if you just want to learn more about what we do. But this is mainly for physicians that are going to be seeing this. And so if anybody's interested in this, if it sounds interesting to you, then we'd encourage you to reach out to us, go to the websites, take a look at it. We're having a great time doing it. And we think it's a great way to practice medicine.
It's been a great change, for sure. It's been really, really exciting. And it just feels like we're so far out there on the front lines now, just sort of helping develop this new area of medicine. It's really, really exciting.
And I'm still ultrasounding. So before we came to Deer Valley, I stopped in Louisville to see a patient of mine, went into her house to see her. I had my butterfly in my backpack. She had right upper quadrant pain, but she also, her SATs had been a little lower than last week.
Oh, wow.
So I looked for pneumonias or signs of PE, look at her gallbladder. It seemed to be more musculoskeletal in the end. But what we're doing, we're not doing ultrasound. It's incredibly useful. We had a patient in Mexico City, actually, went to see, had the butterfly. Older patient, she had dementia, but it was in her apartment, did a full workup, a physical exam, looked at her heart, looked at so many other things. Really, it's
musculoskeletal ultrasound in our athletes that are our patients. Like as we're traveling to see patients who are athletes, they've got shoulder pain or some other musculoskeletal injury. So using it a lot in Wild Health.
Mike and I did a cycling camp with some people, and an injury at the cycling camp. We look and see, is that a clavicle fracture? Or are they just contused, or what's going on? So I actually still enjoy emergency medicine. I still occasionally do a shift, but I love emergency medicine, love ultrasound. I just love this more. It's just a really fun way to practice and make a big difference in patients' lives.
Yeah, that's great. Because the ultrasound, I always say ultrasound is a component of being a physician. And it sounds like you're still doing that. You're doing this amazing thing, which is helping patients age well. And even like if they're, in the process of getting to aging, you're still helping them within that time frame that they're at to optimize everything, to give them a healthier lifestyle, a better quality of life. And then you're using your ultrasound.
I don't think I ever did a carotid intimal media thickness in emergency medicine, but I now do them in 50% of my patients.
Wow.
Yeah, and the healthy aging, that's like, we're doing stuff we think is no one else in the world is doing, really cutting edge, like for example genomics-based longevity protocols. So if you've read the book Lifespan by David Sinclair, he talks about how aging is mostly optional, and there's just the studies in the last year or so using the Horvath clock, looking at reversing biologic age. We think we can do that. So we've actually, we're recording a podcast for the Wild Health podcast. We have a Wild Health podcast we're recording with David Sinclair in about a week.
Awesome.
On longevity, but we've been emailing with him. We have these genomics-based longevity protocols where we look at your genetics, and there are 100 things that are hints that you can, maybe specific molecules that can reverse aging or slow it down. Mm-hmm. But you can't take all of those and do all of those. So we look at genetics and see which ones you're most likely to benefit from. For example, certain ones that help to increase telomerase and telomere length. Mm-hmm. Well, we won't use that in everybody, but if someone has specific SNPs that make them predisposed to have shorter telomeres, maybe for those people, if they have a lot of those, then maybe higher doses. And that's a key component of these we've developed these polygenic risk scores. So instead of looking at one SNP and saying, you're sensitive to saturated fat or you're sensitive to refined carbohydrates, we add up the SNPs and really create an algorithm to help optimize. Because a lot of people are familiar with DNA, you upload it, you get a third-party report. We think those are mostly useless, looking at the single SNPs. It all has, it's a whole
one
picture.
SNP will say one thing, another SNP will say the opposite, so it's like, which one do you trust, right? That's why polygenic is so helpful. And then what we've also done is we've added in some of the epigenetics and the patient preferences to help sort of create these risk scores and get a sense for, exactly, how sensitive are you to saturated fat? How sensitive are you to carbohydrates? Like we can dive in and then help develop that plan for each patient.
And what's your goal? Like with exercise, we have pro athletes who have very specific performance goals, and sometimes it's a strength goal, sometimes it's an endurance goal. But is your goal just longevity? If you go just longevity,
to be able to play that sport or do that activity like into your 60s or
well,
70s.
No, I mean, so yes, but I also mean just our non-pro athletes, people like you and I. Are we really focused on strength or endurance, or are we really focused on being super healthy at 100 and being able to do everything we want at 100? So that patient preference and what you're shooting for determines the exercise program and the fitness regimen that we give you.
Right. Yeah, that sounds like a really important thing. And I can see why you're so into this right now, because it sounds awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I mean, it's good running into you guys.
This is the Ultrasound podcast.
Yeah, can you leave now?
Yeah.
You're not on the podcast anymore. You can go.
So there you have it. So the big news, step one of our big news, is that we are actually going to kick Matt Dawson off the podcast. Or actually, at this point, we've already kicked Matt Dawson off the podcast. Now, I think it was an amicable split. I think it was good for both parties, for sure. This Wild Health thing that Mike and Matt are doing is pretty slick, actually. I'd highly suggest checking it out, wildhealth.com. They also have a podcast where they kind of talk about all this stuff. Really fascinating stuff. So we wish the best for Matt Dawson and for Wild Health as we move forward with our next stage of our plan for the Ultrasound podcast. Now, we will have another announcement maybe in about a week with regards to the Ultrasound podcast, so stay tuned for that. Now, don't forget, if you want to scan with us in person and learn from us and some of the actual good ultrasound educators that exist, we are having some of the best instructors come from all over to come and lecture and come and help with hands-on. So check out the link, CastleFest 2020, to check it out. And as a memoriam for Matt Dawson, we have a special discount code for 15% off. It's only going to be available for 1 week from today, and today is going to be February 24th. So 1 week from February the 24th, this special link is going to be inactivated. So please take advantage of it while it's there. The special link is Goodbye Matt. That's one word, Goodbye MATT, for 15% off of your registration. 1 week only. Check it out.